Awesome. So we are recording and we are here today with Diana. Diana is absolutely amazing. I'm so glad to have her here. She is calling in from Germany, which is amazing. We were able to get the time zones right to meet. But Diana, tell everyone a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how you got there.
Well, what I do. So, Diana, as you mentioned, I'm born and raised in Germany, and we actually met a little over a year ago on school. So, how I ended up on school was I used to work as a consultant. So, my background is in strategy, user experience, customer experience. So, everything system and process, but always from a human lens. So, understanding why those systems need to function in a certain way so that actual humans can use them and that it's serving the humans and not the system. So that is my background. And some years ago, I simply decided nah, it doesn't make sense anymore how the industry evolved and changed. So when I started, way too long ago then to say that, it literally decades ago. Nobody had any idea how those things work because nobody did it before. Like I started pre.com, pre.com. And so we figured out things. And as things happen, it's just like people think they found the way how it works. And this ended for my industry. Oh, customer experience is down to IT development. Is what the beep, that. But that would not have been the worst thing. So I love working with developers. That's not the issue. But I, on a regular, had problems on my table, being asked so this is not working. And me looking, so sure it's not. How could it? But then like 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures have been spent on things I look at as either you just throw it away and do something totally different, or we can try to make it at least kind of work, but that is not making anyone happy. So it's not making me happy. It's not making happy the people who spend a lot of effort, very often in their silos, very often in their containers. And when there is any power of customer experience or complex problem solving, very likely where you experience the problem is not where you solve it. Very often it's like, I don't know, there is an issue with the login. Do people know their credentials? Do people hand out the right credentials to those? Is in a total different area. And then the tech system itself can actually do very little to nothing for it. So, and a lot of those things ended on my table and I was just like getting more and more grumpy. So I decided, no, this has to stop. And I gave myself a gap year, sabbatical. And this is how I landed on school, like literally as a user, as a customer. And I thought, I kind of like that work of collaborative working. And it's also a different access to people on the one hand side and widen your circles, figuring out other people who might love your energy, who might love how you work on the one hand side. And I'm very aware of I might not be the typical corporate person. So not everyone can easily embrace with me being fully loving Frank. And there are people who actually love that energy a lot. So when it came to shy 50 something, I need to market myself. I never had to market myself. I've always been asked to do things. So, but was like, so, okay, if I want to do things on my terms, maybe I need to make that happen on my own. So, oops. And one way of figuring out who my people are and figuring out how to access those was literally like, actually, it's a fair game to say it would be nice if they have a chance to get to know me first. And school is a perfect environment for that. So it's literally like how my whole community is built is like you get a taste. And if you like that way of working, if you like that way of thinking, we can talk.
Very cool. So you worked with a company for a while basically
several.
doing customer experiences. So when you did that, was it like a management position? Was it like working directly with the customer? Was it giving them ideas, technical support? Like, what did that actually look like?
All of that.
All of yeah, worked your way through the whole system, huh?
Absolutely. So I worked as an external consultant. So I only was employed in total in my whole career for 8 months.
Oh wow. Okay.
And that was a head of position for a market leader, a global one with 46,000 people. So in a department for sure, not like,
Yeah.
but it was already very high ranked, and they did a lot to get me. And in the area, and I arrived like, so this was not what I signed up for. But in general, like, I had formal leadership positions, I had informal leadership positions. I worked very closely with tech. I'm very often been a kind of an interface and a translator, like understanding people who do development, understanding their needs, and also figuring out like what you actually want.
Yeah.
And then what I introduced in a lot of projects was what I named the internal customer, aka employee. Because if they don't have something that makes their lives easier, it's very likely that they don't take on what people want to say. No, it's just change. You just need to get used to it. No, people, why would I bother with something that makes my life harder if I don't have anything in return?
Yeah, exactly.
And it sounds so stupid simple, but if you take classic management hierarchies, but this is what we decided. And the people who, so there's a high level of silent sabotage going on, that a lot of so-called innovation projects don't survive because they just don't ask for the buy-in in the first place.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And so you saw all of this happening and you're like, they're not listening to their teams, they're not listening to their employees, and I don't want to be a part of this anymore.
I'm not so diplomatic, so I don't say diplomatically. How I entered the whole industry in the first place was that someone told me, by the way, you do a way better job than the people hired for it. Maybe you should apply for some of those. And for me, and it's so interesting because, like, we just recently did that book we wrote together, and those ideas came up again. He said, "Oh my gosh, it's such a female thing to be asked to be invited, like waiting
Right,
until somebody's and looking." And I was never shy, so yeah, when you say it that way, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It was so interesting because, like, for me, I always had that feeling, but in Germany especially, it's very often that most people see what you learned, what your formal education is about, and this is telling what your role is likely to be. And that never fit. So I studied design, but I studied conceptual design. So, and I'm a female. So, and then I'm a female who is supposedly the person who's making the things looking nice, and then she's asking where the stands behind. So that clashed a lot on the one hand side. So that was always easy when we had those emerging informal structures, when it was just like, so anybody, any idea how to do that? Yeah, we can try, And for whatever reason, I was almost always in my career asked, like, and the other way of ask, like, not like, could you consider or do you know, but is it, oh no, Diana will do that. Is it, Diana has no clue about this, but okay, if nobody is doing it, maybe I'm going to figure it out. So that was like how I stumbled through the first years of my career. And when structures solidified it in a sense-making or non-sense-making way, it was more like, but this is now how we do it. So we finally figure it out, and then it still doesn't make sense,
Yep. Yeah.
And that was when it was getting more tiresome and just so not fun.
Yeah. And then you decided you're like, screw this, I'm just going to do my own thing. But you ended up on school. You said you ended up on school as a user. So how did that happen? What school community did you join?
Oh, that was actually funny. So I absolutely did not plan to end up on school. So, but as I mentioned, I gave myself a gap year and I gave myself a budget for just like exploring things, figuring out, learning some more things, learning about certain things. And I literally, absolutely by accident, stumbled over what I know now is, the high ticket market.
Yeah.
I was always so busy in my life. I was totally oblivious about the whole mega bubble around me of like the whole high ticket thing. What happened is just like I picked some things like, so, I always like workshops. So learning a little bit more about workshops and do them differently could be nice. So this is how I, for instance, started with HM Smart, who are very famous for facilitation. So, and I mean really famous. So who is in that sector, ever heard about design sprints? Though they've been famous for running design sprints, they worked closely with the person who developed the design sprint with Google. They have been part of making the version 2 of it. So it's kind of an industry standard. So they are very well known. And me being just like me, I was so, yeah, they have different things. I just start with the thing on top, you know?
Yeah.
So a lot of people start with, I say, I did a little program here, I did a little program there. I started with their signature program. And it was nice. And I figured out like, tons of, yes, well-made video classes, but tons of video classes. This is boring me like hell. It was very clear, okay, this is not mine. But they had like, what you say, coaching calls. And in the beginning, they also had something what they named marketing clinic, but I already started to get question marks because like the promise given was like, we help you to make this a business. And for me, the reason to join was not that, because I was very sure that is a puzzle piece. You know, I'm not becoming a sole facilitator and the next career I'm pursuing as being a facilitator. So it was clear it might be play into the mix. And I just want to widen my network. I want to get to know interesting people, and I want to learn something on top. So that was my core motivation to join that. And what happened is I met tons of people who've been totally devastated that they couldn't make those programs work for them. Because it was like, so, yeah, but I don't know, it's hard, and I don't know what, and what should my offer be, and there is not really how to grasp this. And I said, sure not, because like whatever they teach, and they do not even promise like business development, but they kind of say it, but they don't do it at all. Is first, the one part is not here at all, even if it was told. And second, even if there is this is the way how to do, you still need to adapt, and you still need to make it your own. You still need to tailor it to your own needs and wants. And unfortunately, some of those people quit their high-paid Silicon Valley jobs for that. Like people quit mid-six-figure jobs for, hey, I become a world-class facilitator, and then it didn't work. And that was hard on many. So I started mentor and coaching some of those people just behind the scenes, not for money, but kind of like I felt so bad because like thinking about what is your actual strengths and how to make use out of that is something that is very natural to me. And it feels we can have a conversation about that. And I met more and more of those people who just felt like, I cannot make it work. And this is on me. So I'm just not doing the things. So I'm not good enough and all those other things. Nah, it's just like if you are lucky, they give you one way. And if you're unlucky, they give you no way how to get there. And if that is not aligning with who you are and your values and also what you want and what you need, it's hard. And it's actually very logical that it might not work, because I don't know how your experience is, but I always see like some people just try hard and then they either stop and freeze, or it's getting harder and harder and harder, and they pour in more and more energy, but it's not, but that energy is kind of just like landing nowhere. And how I see it, it's like you spent all your energy in fighting your own resistance. And worst case, you build up a lot of resentment, either towards yourself or towards what you do. And that's not really healthy, and it's absolutely not leading you where you want to be. So, and that after a while, and meeting more and more of those people, and maybe I also have to say that I gave myself a strict rule for my Sabbath year. It was literally, you do not do any business in this year. No, you will not. You won't. Nope. Nope. Don't fall back in any, you don't help people, you don't. So literally so I literally to the day, because it was beginning of 2024 and end of 2024, I was like, so yeah, might be about time. And yeah, I started my community, I made the decision for the community January 11th, and it opened January 25th, 2 weeks later. 2025. So
that's amazing. And then how did you get onto school? So you said you started from a user perspective. So how did you find school?
Oh, those programs have been hosted on school.
Oh,
as
I didn't even know
that. as basic as that. So like they had either they have been fully hosted on school, or the community part of the program was hosted on school. And me being, if you want to say so, an expert in digital solutions and systems. So yeah, there is something nice to school, that there is an overall simplicity that is interesting and attractive. And I joined other programs, and for one I was so happy. So, oh, it's on another platform. Let's try the other platform. I said, oh my gosh, this is terrible. So I ended it was literally so, okay, and if you do product development, there is a saying that is named "eat your own dog food." So do the things with your things on your own. Be a user, feel how this is, and then only then judge how the experience could be. So I was very happy to test other systems as a user. I learned I despise Kajabi. It's terrible. I learned Circle might have, from the admin side, a lot of interesting things, but the community part and the communication part is just like, how should that work? You can ask questions and nobody will find them. And if someone is answering, you never will find the answers. So there's like the whole really bring people together so they can work on something together and communicate is super hard on Circle, just system-wise and how things are set up. So after yeah, it's cool. It's like a lot of baby shoes and testing other things. So it's cool, I'm coming. It was literally, okay, so it was the best of the options I tested. And during my journey, just a lot of people I met have been on school. So, and if there is any, so many people make it hard on themselves. Like when your people are already in a place, there could be a good reason to be in that place for that reason. Super simple.
Very nice. So then you chose school, you opened your community. So what happened next? Did you just blow up overnight, or what happened? Because you had already been working on it for a while before you actually made your school community.
So little humble, and that is a word I'm normally not using and normally people don't use for me, but little humble me mentioned, oh, if I'm asking 30 people, maybe half of them will join. So I asked 30 people. I gave 2 no's. One person really had other things in her life, and I started the community with 27 people at once.
Wow. Very nice.
And the good thing is, as I mentioned, major parts of my background are in strategy. Yes, out of those 27 people, almost 10 have been facilitators. So I knew most of them might not be my future clients at all, but those people like to communicate.
Yeah.
So there was a very strategic or tactic element to it, to invite people first who have a personal interest in making things happening or supporting. And I like, for the things I was doing in the first year in the community, I did a lot of so-called implementation workshops, not teaching, but actually doing things, learning things and doing them right away, doing it in the time frame given. So whatever, after those 2 hours, you have it out of it, And normally a lot of people spend a lot of time with like training and educating people or whatsoever. I was just in the lucky position, if someone never used those tools, can any of you help? And it was literally like, say, I could not blink as fast as it was done for them, and that is just a privilege. So I had those people, especially in the beginning, supporting, because that is just like what they love, like they love to facilitate, they love to do workshops. So, something I can help, something I can do. So,
Yes.
that was very useful.
No, that's awesome. And they say a lot in school. It's like, once you find those first 10 people that are really active and engaged in your community, it helps, because one of the things I see a lot, especially with my clients, is they get people kind of trickling in, but then people come in and the community's dead. So why do they stay, right? It's like, I always equate it kind of to like a party. If you walk into a party and everyone's just kind of standing around awkwardly and nobody's talking, and like, what are you going to do? You're probably going to turn around and leave. But if you come in and everybody's talking and having a good time, then you'll come in and have a good time and talk. And so that was such a good move, where you found people that like to come in, they like to talk, they like to help, they like to support. And so you started the community off on a very strong foot, so that as you got more members, they're coming into something that's already engaged, already happening, already fun. So I love that. And then, so you started it, everybody's talking, they're having a good time, you're doing these implementation calls. So, and then I know you mentioned like a high ticket as well. So how did you kind of combine the high ticket into school?
Oh, no. I was participating in high ticket. So my own,
Oh, gotcha.
I do have a high ticket offer that is not on school.
Okay.
So I think that's another interesting thing with school, especially like when part of your audience are people who consider building school communities. I think there is maybe it might even be the downside of school, that Discovery and all the other communities are so approachable and accessible. So there is a lot of noise, a lot of people. Oh, there's something new. Oh, there's something more. There is something.
Yeah.
Oh, just jump in here. And also a lot of community owners joining other communities to pull people out or in their own spaces, maybe not out, but also in their own spaces. So there is sometimes very little focus on what people do. And that was also that was a massive learning curve for myself. So I'm only now, after 1+ year, installing way more strict structures about what we do in the community. Because, like, for me, the original thing was like, so ask me anything. So, you're like, I love complexity. Give everything to me. I don't care.
Yeah.
And for some people that works, but for the majority, it's just like they get a little bit lost in like, so, but what to do is, like, what is this about? That is the one part. And then the other part is, as long as we had no freemium or tiers, it was a free community by intention. It was also the free community where, because I wanted to have a free access point to me. And I might going to change that. So I'm always, like, currently I'm still debating back and forth. So next step for me is building a YouTube audience, having another external free access point, simply because there is beauty in leaning back and get to know someone without doing anything.
Yeah.
Issue for my community is, and that is not on the people, that is not on me, it's more the overall structure and the overall expectations of a platform like that, is like, to do what I do, to work, to figure out what your actual strengths are, to figure out what your unfair advantages, to figure out those parts that are in the unknown parts, like, it's not like you might have a hunch, but even if you have a hunch, you might not value the most valuable bits and pieces of you because it's so natural to you. So, like all of those things that are terribly easy for us. So we think so it's worth nothing, but very likely those are the most valuable things you can do. So, but those things and figuring that out, there are two ways. The one thing is like conversations, and the other thing is a resonance, like feedback. But also for the feedback, it's like, if that is just written, you don't get when you say, oh, really? Like those moments,
Yeah.
when people look at you and say, but everyone can do that. Nah.
Yeah.
So those moments you only really get to know and to experience in conversations or in one-to-ones or in special group setups, but people need to join calls for that. People need to hop on conversations. People need to talk to each other. It's nothing that I can teach. I can give them pointers. I can give them indicators. I can friendly nudge them in different directions to explore. But those, oh, really? Are you seriously? Like,
yeah.
It's, Evelyn Weiss, like if Evelyn Weiss tells like, so, can it be really so simple? But it's those moments you don't get when you lean back, you don't get when you consume. There is no way. And this means fostering a culture that needs to feel super safe and secure so that people also can come up with their little doubts with their, but that's, like even mentioning things they normally would not mention. So and that is actually really a little tricky. So and that's my responsibility as the community owner. I need to make my expectations way more clear.
Yeah, that's another thing that I teach a lot too. It's like people don't take action when they're confused. And a lot of times we understand what we're trying to do, but we're not thinking of it from that user perspective, right? Like someone who's actually coming in and using it has no context, has no nothing. And it's hard for some people to get into the mindset of their actual avatar or their customer when they join, you know what I mean? Because we've been sitting here and spending so long actually building out the system. So we've got all the context in our mind. So it's hard to put ourselves into someone else's mind and use it. So I agree 100%. It's like we have to kind of think about, okay, I set up this whole thing. I know what I had the intention of, but what's actually going to be easy for the user? What's actually going to be helpful for them when they come in and, see everything? Are they getting confused? Does it feel overwhelming? And then we know also with school, one of the biggest churn risks is people who are overwhelmed, right? They come in, they look at everything, they get overwhelmed, and then they leave or they don't take action. So how do you, as a business owner, how do you take those steps to simplify?
It's actually not so much simplifying. So I do have another take on simplification. So a lot of things are complex. When we try to, like, a lot of reasons why we feel things are complicated are because we don't look at them in their complexity, but we try to simplify them. So there is something. Now I put on my teacher hat. So there is a law that's named Tesla's law, and that literally means like the complexity of a system can only be reduced so far. Then the question is where the complexity lies, on the system side or on the human side. What is super interesting. So that you can actually not oversimplify. So this is doing more harm than good. My challenge is I need to be way more explicit with the kind of people that is for, because like my people are curious people. And I don't care if you feel more introverted or not, but your soul needs to be a seeker. And if you are just like, oh, give everything to me, I take what you give to me, tell me everything what to do, then you are not my person. And that is more of like, they have this is the conversion rate and this is what you need to have and whatsoever. I know that the people I can work best with are not fitting those average numbers. And it's super clear and getting more and more clear that It's, for me, the biggest task is to repel the right people early and not to get the people in masses. Because yes, I can do certain things. And what I'm currently doing, and I think you do that as well in your community, I literally use the leaderboard to give them bits and nuggets of things that would normally be inequality of paid, but they need to do something. And I occasionally, and I love those feedbacks, get back with a, oh, and it feels like I earn it. That's exactly the whole thing. And you've been in my community, or you are still a member in the community. So the overall theme is a treasure hunt. And yes, overall, it's about business development. And you don't get that on a silver platter. You know, if you want to build your business and you expect to you just have to pick it up, there is something inherently wrong with that. Because best case, you are a franchise of another idea. But it might not be yours. And to make it yours, the challenge for me, and for sure the challenge I put my people through, is peeling off those layers of being smart, sounding competent, being safe enough behind all those, oh, I have those skills, this is everything I know, you know? So it's literally give them a safe enough environment where they can be themselves, so they can be seen, and to learn that that is actually making a difference. We just had yesterday a beautiful strategy call where one of the original group actually, they said, yeah, and I like systems, I like tech, and whatever, and I've been told the method I'm using is controversial. And like the whole room is why would that be? But she literally took in that advice, even from the people who taught her that method. Yeah, it's controversial. So she was carrying around like, what I do is difficult. So, and but she herself as a person, she might be one of the sweetest, cutest, nicest people ever. And she was building a whole construct around AI and systems and security and everything, so that she can rectify that what she's doing is solid. And it was not possible to feel her anymore. And people would line up just to get a hug from her, you know, like, I said, can we please bring those two things together? Can we please, like, even if you like those parts, but it turned out like all those important sounding things are actually protection layers of hers. So this is what's keeping her safe, because then she doesn't need to expose herself as a person. As I love that. Maybe you like that too.
And yeah, why do you think we do that? Why do you think we put on all these protection layers to avoid being vulnerable with people?
Oh, I think it's super personal. There might be a tons of reasons. So I don't name her, so I can just share some of her parts. So she's an expat in the country. So she did not grow up in the country, and she's absolutely fluent in English. So she lives in US as a US citizen, and she has an accent. And she does not always feel safe and secure. And she used to work in high-paid jobs. So she used to perform. She used to be really competent in what she did. But the biggest difference she always did and managed to bring up was how people felt around her. And while she was aware of that, she literally did not give that the value. But you give that to your skills, because this is also how our society works, you know, like we are trained to be skillful. We are not trained to be a decent human. And you wanted to say something, you moved your lips a bit.
No, I was just going to say that's so true. You know, our world is built on consumerism, right? So what do you have to give back to the world in a consumeristic way? How can you provide towards the general economy is pretty much the overall consensus of society. Nobody really actually cares about being a decent person. I think everyone does care, but when we look at the world and it's like, okay, how am I going to put myself out and be an asset to the world? The mindset isn't, oh, I'll be a decent person, right? Like, I'll be a good person. I'll hold doors open for elderly people. I'll return the carts at the shopping center. We'll treat people with dignity and respect. So it's so true. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, but that is just one part of it, because there is another part that is very often not outspoken, and I just can share that from lived experience. So I've been always valued for what I can do, but I was not always liked as a person. So when I was invited to tables, it was for being useful. And being useful is actually replaceable. So when you look at how people are promoted, how informal circles are built, that is actually pretty much down to who they are and how they connect with people. And my logical mind, like especially when I was younger, and I mean like my 20s or so, I was always so confused about like, but those people don't know anything, they do beep, so it's like, so but there is no value in what they do. But it was also so interesting because I learned even like when I decided to do that career break, a former colleague, and I was laughing tears. I laughed her to pieces. She said, "Oh, as colleague, you've always been a little bit scary, but as coach and mentor, that's perfect." So thanks for not telling me ever. And we are good friends, like I've been invited to her when she married, they first did that in the formal way before they went to church, and the first circle was like just 13 people, like I've been in her close circles, I've been in her whatsoever. So, and as a person, she really liked me, but like just like, oh, as a colleague, you've always been a little bit scary. We did not even work together in work, we've been just in the same environment. Okay. so that that informal parts, or just like that human to human, or people, sometimes people, and that might also be another thing that a lot of people who value performance or who value quality have a hard time with, is that other people don't, and you are kind of a symbol of they don't do so well, even if that is not your intention, but it makes you very unlikable. And I just recently had someone who was testing something, and she was writing 3 emails with like, "Sorry, this went wrong, and I'm so sorry." And I was DMing her, and literally I said, nothing seriously happened, that is, it's digital, it's going away. And she said, "Yeah, but still, and I feel like incompetent." And he said, actually, you could look at that as a people do like me more and see me as a human campaign. So like trying to be too perfect, I can say that. So I did not try, but hard on that, but I was seen for it. It doesn't make you likable and relatable. It doesn't. It just don't. And once I learned, I said, oh, people actually like those little mishaps. That gives you so much peace of mind.
Yes, absolutely. And it's so funny because I feel like this is seen in so many different areas too. When I first started having kids, I would go to all these different moms groups, right? And there was even just like you said, unintentionally, it's like you're going there, and one of the things that I noticed right off the bat, and this is where I think you have to toe the line of like, how much do you actually want people to like you and fit in, right? And so I'd go to these groups and they'd like complain about their husbands, and then I'd be like, well, I have nothing to complain about. That did not get me brownie points, like, and then same thing, like I would hear them like talking badly about their kids in front of their kids, which I just think is really nasty. And I'm like I would be soft and tender with my kids, because like I'm not gonna like be putting them down, especially not in front of them. Like, that's terrible, right? And so it was funny because it took me some time to realize, you know what, these people are just not my people. Like, why do I keep going? You know, you're so desperate for like human attention, human touch, and just people that resonate with you. And I think sometimes people, out of that desperation, they hang around people that don't actually resonate with them, right? So how do you juggle that balance of being likable but also attracting the right people?
That's a good one. So maybe a confession. I don't try hard to be likable. I gave up on this maybe 25 years ago. I just figured out some people like me, some people don't. I had, in the beginning of my 20s, a professor telling me I might be one of the most polarizing persons he ever met. And my little inner, but I did nothing. And I also want to be liked and to be loved, you know? So it literally says, but how come I do nothing? I learned, and that might have to do with a lot of my internal energies and how people in general react on me or around me. I had a lot of, oh, this is surprising moments. So I know my intentions very well, pretty much as what you shared. So I do have, I would say, a strong rein on me. Like, even if I could do a lot of things, I would not allow that to myself because it's not in my value system. So, and when I was very young, I had the feeling like, so the world around me doesn't make sense to me. So I built up my own value systems early. So, and I literally cherry picked from everything. So like, that makes sense. That doesn't make sense. So I literally created my value world around me. And it might have been terrible to be around me in my early teenage years, have to say that. So I might have been very righteous. I have been very clear about, nope, this is not okay. So, but I learned, okay, so this is mine. So for whatever reason, I really also early learned, like, everyone can do what he or she wants. That's in, like, I don't have power over that, and it's not on me to tell. So, and I might have been 16, 17 when I learned that. So I learned those lessons super early, what I'm absolutely grateful for. But this also gives you like a massive gap, you know, like I had the feeling like I was growing up around, surrounded by children. So don't do they? So I felt very alienated when I was young. And then I stepped into roles where I was just useful and seen being as valuable because I was skillful and resourceful. And so that being liked part was not so much important because I just was always very busy. So, but I always had that small, valuable circles around me. And I'm loyal to a fault. So if I have people, and if people even show the slightest sign of they like me, they like me. So it took me a little bit more that I learned, so, okay, but that doesn't mean I need to do everything for them. You know, just like being grateful for being liked a little is also not the best idea to do. And sometimes you just have those moments when things click. And one was like, so, oh, if I'm only liked when I'm useful, that should give me a warning sign. And once I like, and this is very much me, when I see patterns and I recognize them, I might instantly make my mind. So seeing that was gone. So it was literally, I'm not available for that. So that was not always taken well. So especially from people who say, yeah, but you could do that for me. So, yes, and why should I? And that happened to family. That happened also to some colleagues. And then you learn who is actually interested in you as a person and who is not. And for whatever reason, I've been always very set in myself. So I could really deal with not having masses or a huge amount of people around me. I always had some very special ones. And that is till today. So I have still friends when I know, like I have friends who live over borders. If I would call, they would take their car and ride over or fly over, just so. And if you have that feeling of people in your life, that doesn't mean you ask for they do anything of that, but that basic understanding of that is so humbling and so wonderful. And that's all you need. And if you have a handful of those, and I do, that is maybe more than most people have, who spend their life bending themselves to be liked by people who actually do not value them.
That's so beautiful. That's also such a wow moment, because I spent a lot of my life, I had a very similar mindset when I was a kid, which is kind of funny. Maybe that's why we like each other, Diana. Because I grew up and I was like, I felt like, what the heck is going on? I remember being literally 12 years old outside at recess, right, where all the kids are running around playing. I have this very vivid memory where I stood there and just watched everyone playing, thinking, how are they all just playing together like this? Like, I remember it means that my kids have better influences. You know what I mean? Um, and so it's funny because it was such a long, like, I feel grateful that you were able to learn that so early, because I feel like so many women are kind of closer, took us a lot longer to figure that out, you know? Or even I know a lot of women that are still kind of in that boat where they, you know, they're like, oh, I don't want to get rid of this friend because, well, it's someone like our kids play together or something like that. But at the same time, they recognize that this person's not good for them, their mental health, their family's influence, things like that.
Yeah. I would say there are always up and downsides of things. So one of
Yeah.
the reasons why I learned things early was that I was like exposed to a lot of things that you hope not to be, you know, like I started working almost full time next to school when I was 13, 14. So maybe that was another part that I just missed, but I didn't see it that way when I was younger. I just had no time for all those childhood dramas that friends have and friend circles. So I just like, I worked and I went to school, and I was lucky when I had some sleep. So I had a period of time in my life when I had about 20 hours sleep a week. And there was no time for that kind of trauma or made up trauma. And that is also useful to an extent. And I worked in service. So my mom and her partner had a restaurant. And then you just learn people from another side, especially when you have like drunk people around you and whatsoever. So for instance, I'm till today, I was tipsy in my life, but I was never drunk. I saw so many drunk people out of control when I was young. I said, this? Me? No. So I had a lot of, how to say that, I learned a lot of life lessons from observation, and just like, do I want that? Don't. So does that make sense to me? So, and I collected a lot of those things, and it was not until other people around me my age started also to work and to contribute to like more serious things in their lives, that this gap felt closing. So I was just not, I had a different life compared to them. So it was very natural that there have not been really close friendships. One thing was I had no time for it. And then it was like, when I had 1, 2, 3 people, so that was also everything I could manage. You know, I had not time for all those. So I just hadn't. And some people could say, "Oh, she lost a major part of her childhood." I say, I learned a lot of valuable things early. So it's, but that's another piece that I learned a lot of people don't have. And in my coaching and my mentoring, I try to bring that always in, is like, in the very end, it's your responsibility what you do with it. You know, like that resilience part of things happen. If that is not in your control, they happen, even if it's happening to you. And then it's but it's in your control how this makes you feel. It's in your control how you learn from this.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that's like the key to resilience, right? It's like we all go through so many different things. And there was a great speech that I had watched once where they're talking about how like we're all oppressed in our own way. Everybody's got their own trauma, everybody's got their own background, everybody's got their own story, but it's like the outcome is really just what do you do with that, right?
Mhm.
It's like, do you turn that into a beautiful story of redemption, or do you wallow in it and let it control your life for forever? But I wanted to go. So you had mentioned that like you just didn't have time for it as a kid. Was
Mhm.
that because you were so interested in being busy and all these things? Was it more out of necessity that like your parents just didn't have the money, so you had to work to help supplement? Did your parents kind of push you into that so that you were busy and you didn't have time for these? Like, what did that dynamic kind of look like?
Oh, I always had an easy time taking on responsibilities. So it's my choice. So I decided to do that, but so it was a family business, and the husband of my mom just fell ill. He got cancer.
Mm.
He could not work. So it was literally like back in the days, it was crying mom at home, crying siblings at home, go to work. Go to work sounds brilliant. So
Yeah.
it was a good way to say, and I can tell, yes, I worked a lot, and it was appreciated to an extent. It was more like no one was keeping me away from it.
Mm.
So, and it maybe turned into a habit, like, oh, she's doing it, so she can do more of it.
Yeah.
And there was one moment where I'm really super grateful for a teacher. So the head teacher of my class, I don't know the English term for it. Like we have from the structure that you have different classes with different teachers, but one teacher is responsible for the class.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't know either.
Okay, so
There's like a principal who oversees the whole school, but it sounds like it's a different structure entirely.
no, it's just for the class. So you are in a certain class.
Mhm.
You have your group of people that is fixed, but
Mhm.
they join different classes with different teachers. But overall, for the class, there is one teacher responsible.
Okay.
And that one, she called my mom in, like, your child seems to be a little bit tired recently, a little bit more than a bit, And my mom started crying, like how difficult work is.
Mm.
And this brilliant teacher just mentioned to, oh, this is not about you. This is about your daughter.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was sitting there kind of embarrassed. But that moment, like, so, oh, this is about me. That is actually
Aw.
about me. That was, I felt so grateful. And my mom said, but I can live my trauma here. And that teacher didn't allow. So
Mm.
she made it very clear that your daughter is going to school, so this is her first job. Whatever is happening in your family, she needs to have time for school.
Yeah.
So that was really, and you see, I still get almost emotional. So there was a caring element that I did not experience a lot when I was growing up. So
Mm.
I felt really, really seen and valued in that moment from this teacher.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Did you So again, I know we obviously very different cultures. You're from Germany, I'm from the US and all, but is that a common mindset in Germany? Kind of, I know you had mentioned like you had this lack of caring. Is that like a common part of growing up in Germany? I have no idea. What is like the general parenting style in
Mm.
Germany?
Maybe I have to say we've been a patchwork family. So it's been my child, your child, and our child.
Mm-hmm.
So the family dynamics have not been as easy.
Okay.
And lack of caring, I don't know. I don't speak bad about my parents, but both acknowledge like they might have not done the best job. And I say like they did what they did, it doesn't
Yeah.
change the thing. So and I'm not bitter about it, but it's been yeah. And maybe that's another reason why I was so useful, like when you are not
Yeah.
really when it's not about you, or if you're more tolerated on the table, you just make yourself useful.
Yeah. It's so true. Interesting. Yeah, I always like to look at, because again, as parents, right, we're always trying to figure out like what is the best way to raise our kids, right? So I love hearing people's different experiences and kind of how like different childhood things. And by the way, there is no perfect way to raise a child. So anybody who's listening, that is there's no perfect way. You're always gonna do something that's gonna traumatize your kids at some point, right? But
or the kid is traumatizing the parents.
Yeah.
So I can wholeheartedly say that me being born was really difficult for both of my parents. So I've been born out of marriage, and me being my age, that was not how it was used. How people used to see families, or being a single mom was really, really hard for my mom. Like, she was, in her understanding, super young, and she never lived on her own, and then she felt pregnant. So she was almost 22 when she had me. And for her, it was like, my life is over. Nobody wants me anymore. I have a child now. So that was really hard on her. So, and for my father, it was hard in a total different way. So he is a descendant of an old noble family. So that was like just a shame.
Yeah.
So that was really hard on him. So he could not really stand having that, and so it was difficult for both of them. And when my mom finally found a man that was interested in her, it was literally like my last chance, like that might be the last man who wants to have me. And she had very, I would say, idolized ideas about parenting. So I was raised by my grandma, and my mom had me, and then she went back to work, and my grandma decided to stay at home and take care of the grandchild. And my mom had the idea of, and you have some kids, like, so, oh, I just have kids, and then I have, like, it's a little bit household, and the rest of the time is just me. So she was literally hoping for being rescued by a man, being a stay-at-home mom and having an easy life. And then she met someone who was actually not very kind to her, and she had such a hard life. So, and she had to work more than ever. And she got really, really bitter. And how could you be angry about that, such a person?
Yeah.
And I'm just so grateful that maybe in her last 2-3 years, she made peace with a lot of things and had a small but content and happy life. So she died super young, but I was so, so glad that she did not went with that bitterness in her, because she was sometimes such an angry person. And that was not because, like, it was like nothing happened like she wanted.
Yeah.
And then we kind of had a reverse relationship. So I was always the more adult and the more willpower. Like, I was way more strong-willed than her. And yes, might not be easy to have something like me as a child. Be honest, like, that is like how to deal with that thing,
Yeah.
So that is for sure not easy. And but she had some crazy good moments, like I just recently told the story that so with today's vocabulary, you would say, like, I was bullied in school a lot. And you ask for the caring aspect. No, nobody was caring. I just came home crying for maybe a year in a row. And the only person who, when she figured out, was my grandma, and she put in some interventions. But in general, so yeah, the kid is just disappearing in her room, so she doesn't. So she's no trouble, And but during that time, what happened? So, like, when you don't go to school in Germany, you have to like a written note from your parents that you are ill or whatsoever. So, and I was faking that.
Yeah.
obviously faking that.
Yeah.
So she got a call, and I was really young. So, and she got a call like, we have here something that doesn't look like your signature, though. And she like, that's absolutely mine. So like literally, and hang off, just telling me, so if you have something, just let me know. So those moments have been amazing. And yes, there are always, as you mentioned, there's no perfect way. So for whatever reason, and I was raised with like, oh, she can manage. And how many kids are, I would say, wrapped in cotton wool with like, oh, take care, don't do that, like,
Yeah.
don't do that. And from it was always like, she can, and yes, as an adult, I know like this is coming with two sides, like she can manage on her own, so I don't have to care. But having that core gift of she can manage and I trust in her to manage is something that most kids don't have when they grow up. So there are always two sides to it. So no complaint, and you will not hear or feel complaint from my side. And my mom had complaints. Because she literally mentioned that to me. You've been such an uncomplicated child, and your siblings aren't. And this is my fault. How?
You're like, cut me some slack. I was the one that wasn't complicated.
Yeah, but it was literally like, no, but it was the other way around. Like, it was literally like she complained, like, how could my siblings not be as easy as me?
Yeah.
I have to deal with them as well. So you made them. So that's been a lot of funny moments.
Yeah. Do you think that lesson you had of being able to be confident and do the things that you have to do and just do it without complaining, do you feel like that's necessary for entrepreneurship?
That's a super interesting and super tricky question. I had to unlearn that I have to do everything by my own. And like the overall thing, I can figure it out for sure is very helpful. But is there a limit to where you should do that? That is another learning experience, I would say.
Yeah.
Did you ever happen to take over things that have not been yours just because you could, or if you do it, it's faster, better, whatsoever? Yeah. And you ended up in doing way too many things at once. Did that ever happen to you?
I feel like that's a huge part of, honestly, just existing as a woman. I feel like a lot of women just try to carry the burden and weight of everything.
Yeah, but I think that is also self-made to an extent.
Yeah.
And I had one training that I joined my mid-end 20s. I would say the first thing that you could quote on, like that you could assign with self-development or something like that. And someone was just like, asked me, so, oh, how many of the backpacks you are carrying are yours? I was just like, what is this person even speaking about? Like that is like, so like sometimes, and you mentioned the complaining, I think, and I mentioned resentment earlier. So I think literally a lot of us take on things that are not meant to be ours. And then we do that for a way too long time, and then we get angry about it. And there are many layers to it, because like seeing, like, so is this mine in the first place? How do I redelegate? And you asked me earlier about like guiding people or telling people what to do and so on. Like one of the things when you work with me is you are responsible for your own results. Doesn't mean I'm not caring to the highest level I'm capable of, but you need to do it. Yeah. I'm not going to do it for you. And that doesn't mean that I could not try to drag you over the line to an extent. That is very likely possible, but it would not change a thing. And I think when you speak about entrepreneurs, you need to be very clear about what kind of service you're offering and what level of dependencies you want to have with your partners and your clients, and also codependencies. So there is a level of maturity that you just need to be aware of, that if you want that, you need to ask for it, and not just asking in a nice and female way, but making it damn clear that that is exactly how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you feel like is, when you're working with your clients, what do you feel like is the biggest problem, issue, thing that they're trying to get through and get past?
Interesting way of asking. So, so the classic coaching approach, what is your problem? What is your obstacle or whatsoever, is
Yeah.
not how I'm working. So topics we touch base is how to keep yourself safe enough to actually do the thing. So that is especially, like, I just yesterday had a super nice conversation with someone. So, yeah, but I'm so used to expose myself to the maximum and to bring myself into most uncomfortable situations and to force myself into that growth zone. And then I'm faltering, and then I'm getting breakdowns for days, hours, and weeks. So, and we had it with the upbringing. That's also very much, especially in US, like how that is supposed to work, like, so, yeah, you do it and just more. But we more and more learn about like nervous systems and other things, and that whole model of like comfort zone, fear zone, growth zone, whatsoever. I do have my personal ideas about it, and they are not very nice.
Yeah.
System-wise and from our whole being, we are tailored to stay alive. And it's a good thing to stay alive, and that safe enough is a part, like figuring out like what is, like finding an honest answer to the question of how much uncertainty you can handle. Because that doesn't say how far you can go. It just tells you how large your steps should be. So that is something that is very surprising for a lot of people. And the other thing that is maybe the most interesting thing for a lot of people, like a lot of people speak about like, oh, they have limiting beliefs, or that is just in the way. I like to figure out what they want more. So, and being honest, what you actually want, what you really need. So that is a core of the work I do. And sometimes just being honest with, I actually do have needs and they need to be listened to. Maybe the biggest, not obvious change a lot of people have. And then when you ask me as a coach and mentor, I would say the bravest thing to do is acting on it.
Yeah.
Because you get so much gratification for all the things to do that other people say is the right thing to do. Doesn't mean it's the right thing for you to do.
I love that. So we're going to start wrapping this up, but if somebody was to come to you and say, Diana, give me your best piece of advice. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm struggling with all of these things, right? Your ideal client. What would be the piece of advice that you would give them?
What gives you the most joy?
Love that. It's funny. We just had a book club this morning in my community, and we've been reading The Energy Bus. I don't know if you've heard it.
No.
So, and we had a whole conversation this morning about doing what you're passionate about and what brings you joy. So I love that. So good. We'll make sure we put your links in the description so people can check you out. Did you have any last thoughts you wanted to leave with the viewers?
No, just an encouragement. Believe it or not, people come for you. Not what you know, not what you stand for, not what you do for them. In the very end, they come for you. And that does not need to be the liking part. That can be that you are the only person who actually gives an honest honest answer and honest feedback, and or that is seeing the other person for who she is, what is also not common. So like, dare to be human and dare to be you. That is and yeah, I would say that's it.
That's beautiful. I love it, Diana. Thank you.